A few words about Nilesh. Nilesh is an author and writes extensively on ancient Indian history. He is the adjunct assistant professor at School of Indic Studies, Institute of Advanced Sciences, Dartmouth, Massachusetts, USA. Nilesh worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years in energy, aviation, materials, and business development. He was an executive corporate trainer for 15 plus years in Lean Six Sigma, change acceleration process, action workouts, and advanced courses in material characterization, reliability, statistical tolerancing, and design of experiments. He is currently working on 4 books and has written 2 books in the past which are critically acclaimed. When Did the Mahabharata War Happen? The Mystery of Arundhati was written in 2011 and was nominated for the Lakatos Award given annually by the LSC. His second book, The Historic Rama, was written in 2014. Nilesh holds an MBA and an MS in chemical engineering. He resides in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. I request him to address the gathering.
Namaskar. It's very rare that I run into people who understand the crux of my Mahabharata book. So very happy to tell you today, when Jai Pradeep ji explained you the Arundhati Vasishtha observation, I was very happy, because when I published the Mahabharata book, I sent 50 plus copies to every single Mahabharata researcher who was alive or is alive. And you know what? I received maybe acknowledgement from 2-3 individuals, and that's it. I never heard from other Mahabharata researchers for a long time. Okay, so it was just a pleasure to hear somebody who is not necessarily into the research, but as a consumer of knowledge, understanding the crux of it. Okay, so that was very good. What I want to share with you are some highlights, from the Indian knowledge system. So the title is Scientific Acumen, or if we have to translate, in fact, I have translated from Sanskrit, that's the close it gets. So Vijnana Buddhi. Okay, so I have translated Vijnana Buddhi as scientific acumen. And then few illustrations of the contribution of Indian civilization. Now, what I can do is I can give you a long list of different contributions, different areas that Indian civilization has made contribution. But then what will happen is, all you have is a long list that you might have heard, that India has done this and India has done that. But when someone asks you the details, you may not be equipped. Many times we are not equipped. So what happens? Either we come out as not well informed as to what the contributions are, or we come out very bombastic, we come out like, as if like we have done everything. But what we have done is actually amazing, and all I'm going to show you is just few illustrations. But let's start with what is scientific acumen. 3 points I would like to make in today's presentation, and I would love if you give questions, if you ask questions, comments, objections, criticism, everything is welcome. That is our Indian tradition of Samvad, Vad, Vivad, okay, and more. And I'll talk about that. So the first one is, I want to give you an Indian perspective. Now, we hear the fight in the West, outside India, Western Europe, and then now many parts of the world, a fight between religion and science. Okay? You never hear that fight in India. You go back, track our ancient narratives, you will not find this fight between science and religion. The reason is, in India, science is the religion. At least it was the religion. Okay, some other influences have modified us. I mean, we can blame them as much as we want, but we are also responsible for it if we accepted their arguments. The second point I would like to make is that all the Indian systems are open architecture. Okay, and in that sense they are science. Why is that? If you go to Rigveda, how many of you have heard, and I'm sure you have read it too, or at least the translation of it, Nasadiya Sukta. of Rigveda? How many of you have heard Nasadiya Sukta from Rigveda? Raise your hands. Okay. And what does it say? You cannot have a broader outlook, a scientific outlook than Nasadiya Sukta. It says, when did the universe begin? And then it says, maybe we should ask gods. Okay, but it says gods won't know because they were not there when it began. And then it says maybe that ultimate force, that Paramatma Tattva, maybe he knows. And then it says maybe he knows not. If you see, that's the spirit of science. In different words, I'll say the spirit of science is, we may not know things, we may not know the truth, but we can try and we may be lucky. And actually that's what happens. Those people who try, okay, they come out to be lucky. This is a consistent experience of everyone who has tried. So we have an open architecture. It's extremely pragmatic. It's non-dogmatic, and Jai Pradeep ji referred to that. It's non-dogmatic, and it's focused on solving problems. That's what science claims. Okay, the job of science is just to solve problems. The third one is, I would like to share from each of the three categories some original contributions of India. And I'll tell you why I selected these three. Everyone hears me fine? No echo, right? Okay, all right. The first one is Amati, and I'll tell you in a minute what that is, or where do I bring this from. Then Kshuddha, everyone knows Kshuddha. Okay, most of us experience it 3 times a day. The hunger. Where is my breakfast, and where is my lunch, and where is my dinner, okay? And the last one is Abhishastu. I think we all are used to that, okay? It's the health not being well, disease, and stuff like that. So let's start with the first one, science as a religion. We have something called Shat Darshanas. We have heard those words. Many of you might be familiar with it. Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Purva, and Uttara Mimansa, or Vedanta. Number of you are familiar with that word. Okay. Now, what I'm going to focus on is the first 4, okay, because they relate directly to what we consider science worldwide today. Okay. So let's start with the Patanjal's Yoga Darshan or Yoga Sutra. Can everyone read in the past? If not, I'll just say it anyways. Patanjal in his Yoga Sutra, these are sutra, you know, just a short statement, aphorism. And what is the beauty of it? That short sentence captures so much, okay? The Patanjali meant something, of course, but it is also given as an open architecture for you to reinterpret with times. That's true of Bhagavad Gita too, and I'll refer to that. So the first one I want to quote, it says, Pratyaksha Anumana Agama Pramanani. This is from the first phase, Samadhipad Shlok or Sutra number 7. Now, how many of you think that there is a science there? Just wait until I finish this slide. Okay? Pratyaksha Anumana Agama Pramanani. So if you are not familiar with it, you are going to say it's something written in Sanskrit, something complicated, something religious, and whatnot. All it's saying is, in terms of proof, what you are looking at is a pratyaksha, which is objective testing, basis of science. Anumana, you have to draw a conclusion, you have to make a prediction. Okay? Agama, a background knowledge. If you are studying in astronomy, you need to accept certain things of astronomy, like laws of Newton and whatnot, as true. That's agama. And the pramanani is the evidence. That's science. There is honestly no 4th thing or 5th thing beyond that in science. Now, what is the next verse? Very important. It says, Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam. Anything that is contrary to that first line is not science or is not true. That's very useful. The third one, they are in sequence, they happen to be in a sequence. शब्द ज्ञानानुपाति vastu shunyo vikalpa. If you make some verbal claim which does not match with reality out there, if you make some claim which there is no evidence for it that you can show, it leads to confusion, it leads to delusion. Okay, so what we are saying is anyone making a claim, and Jay Pradeep ji referred to my claim for the Ramayana timing or Mahabharata timing, and I'll briefly refer to it. You should say, okay, where is your evidence? Okay, so then I'll show you those two thick books, not that thick, but I'll say, okay, please read those, go through those 200 references. But you can also object. That's the idea there. Now let's quickly go to another text. This is a Nyaya Darshan of Gautam. Some very neat definitions, okay, especially those of you who have a science background, physics background, and even mathematics background can quickly relate to this. Gautama is saying the same thing that Patanjali said, slightly modified, and that's the beauty again. We can modify things. Instead of pratyaksha anumana agama pramanani, he says pratyaksha anumana upamana shabda pramanani. He added one more category of evidence, upaman, okay, analogy, or things like that. Next two, you're going to like it. I love them. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. This is a definition of what is a drishtanta. You know, we say an illustration or a metaphor or simile. He says, laukika parikshakanam yasmin arthe buddhi samyam sadrishtanta. That is the definition. He says, when ordinary people and an expert of some subject, when they both are on the same page, that is a drishtanta. Meaning everyone is on the same page. Okay, and I'll give you a couple examples of that. And the next one is also beautiful. That explains what we consider science today. It says, Swapratipakša sthapana hino vitanda. How many of you have heard the word vitandavad? Like, please don't do the vitanda. What it is saying is, unless you have a alternate position of your own, but you are simply trying to find a fault in someone else, you are doing vitanda. There is nothing wrong in finding fault into someone else's work. Have you heard this story that there was one painter, he made a painting and in a public place he placed it there and wrote the note saying, please find the defects in this painting, and if you find it, mark it X. By the time he came in the evening, what did he find? Lots of X's, right? Then in another location, what did he do? He put the same painting, clean, new painting, and he said, please find the defects in this painting and please correct it. And just note it down, what was the correction? And what did he find at the end of the day? Those of you who know the story. Nobody did anything. Okay, so when it came to correction, nobody did anything. So you can easily find a fault. That's not a big deal. No theory in science is perfect. And actually, Indians knew that. Okay. Now, I want to do a quick comparison with what the Indian wisdom on science is with what is considered the best of scientific wisdom in the world today. If you have to take the best name for scientific wisdom, the best philosopher of science is Sir Karl Popper. He passed away in around 1993. Okay? And do you know what he says, defining what is science? He says it is the triangle of explanation, prediction, testing, explanation, prediction, and testing in the context of a theory and in the context of background knowledge. Now that's in English, right? Now, anyone sees a similarity, something what you heard before, just in last 5 minutes? Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. It is nothing but that. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. And I'll give you another example. A number of you might have heard it. Richard Feynman, a great physicist. Okay? And he says, what is science? He says you start with a problem. And to solve that problem, you propose a solution. Okay, once you propose a solution, you predict the consequences. And you take those consequences and you try to compare them with the actual evidence, experiments, nature, observations. And if they match, you accept the theory as if it is true for some time, until someone comes with a better theory. That is Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. Okay? Now, scientific acumen in the Indian literature has many elements, but I'm going to just give you a quick list of 11 elements which are very applicable to technology. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but these are those elements. Now, what I did is I chose the English ones so that I'm not going through the Sanskrit words. For example, number 1 is nischay, aim. You need to know why you are doing this, you know. So you're working on some technology problem. Separation, that's Pruthakkaran. You might have heard this. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not showing here. Okay, classification. So this tells you what? Distinction, sequencing, association, objective testing, that tells you how. Then you bring it all together, unification or ekikaran. Then in a scientific attitude, you have to have a skepticism. You don't wait for somebody else to find faults in your theory. You do it yourself. Okay? And then you try to find out why it happened. So going back to what Jai Pradeep ji said about my work, Arundhati appears to go ahead of Vasishtha, and that's great. We can use that. But then someone is obviously going to ask the question, what is it that made Arundhati go ahead of Vasishtha? Why it appears in the sky that it went ahead? So that's that karya karana bhav, or underlying phenomenon, causation. And then the indriya brahm, sometime why we make errors. All right? So it's all dry. Okay, let's get into some interesting parts. Cricket, we talked about IPL, right? Now pay attention to this. This is a challenge for majority of our Mahabharata researchers. There are more than 130 different researchers who have come up with those many different claims for the timing of Mahabharata war. Out of those 130, you are looking at one of the 130 here. Those many different claims. Suppose we have to find out if this cricket ball matches the description of the specification of Indian Cricket Board. What would you do? So if the diameter is accurate or not, you have to measure it, right, in some ways. How many of you are familiar with this equipment called vernier caliper? If you are not, no big deal, okay? All right. So what do we do? If you want to measure the diameter, you have to take this ball and put it between those two prongs, yeah, initially. So that's what we call the main scale, the approximate scale. And then we note down the secondary scale, okay? It's called the vernier scale. We tighten the screw, and now we take some measurements, do some mathematical calculation, and we take the reading and try to see if it fits between the specification of IPL or Indian Cricket Board. Suppose we take the measurement, it comes out 75.06. Do you think the cricket ball is a good one? Some of you said yes, some of you said no. It was a trick question, and thank you for being tricked. Because what happened? If you look at 75, that 75 here doesn't fit between the 71 and 72, whatever the specifications. But if you look at the last digits, okay, 0682, 0.0682, it's like right on the money. Yeah? So what we are telling here is, if you are not approximately correct, it doesn't matter how accurate you are, how precise you are going to be wrong. Everyone understands it here, what I'm saying in this room? Now, when I show this example to Mahabharata researchers, my counterparts, and I said, you know, your date is wrong because this is the point you missed. I'm just giving you as an analogy. And you know, some of them, Dieter Koch, have you heard that name? Yeah, I sent this to Dieter Koch, and you know, his reaction was, you got to be kidding. Okay? So this is the principle that has been taught to us by the scientific acumen of Indian literature. Common sense, right? Taratamya. All right, another simple example. Now this is based on my research. Now what you'll find is, I don't know if you can read it, but that's perfectly okay. I don't expect you to read it. This is looking at which evidence you test first and which evidence you test afterwards, just like the vernier caliper, okay? But it's not easy for everyone to understand unless you are into astronomy. Okay, what is that? AV observation, Bhishma Nirvana, seasons, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the drishtanta. Remember that I talked about that we all can be on the same page. How many of you have eaten French fries? Who has not eaten French fries? Oh, okay. No one wants to admit that, maybe, you know. Okay. So, if you want to make French fries, what do? The first step is get potatoes, wash them. Yeah, so that's step number 1. The second step is cut them into the shapes that you like. The third step is fry them. I'm making it simple. Maybe there are a few more steps. And then the next step is what? After frying them, season them, salt and pepper and what you want to do. That's the sequence. You know, we are calling this anukram. That is a very key principle of scientific acumen in which the sequence matters. Now imagine instead of this sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, you select any other sequence. Let's try a couple. How about we do 4, 3, 2, 1? So we take the potatoes, which is the potatoes you see, the soiled potatoes at the beginning. You season them. Then you fry them. Then you cut them and then you wash them with water. Are you with me? So any other sequence will lead to a disaster. Yeah? All right. Any other sequence will do that. And then what is association? Some things go with that particular step. So for example, if you're washing, you wash with what? Water, hopefully, right? Okay. If you're cutting with a knife. If you want to fry with oil. Okay. And then season with salt and spices and whatnot. If you change those associations, again you are going to, even if you maintain the steps, but let's say you wash the potatoes with oil and try to fry them with water. Now what happens? Now you're cooking them, okay? Just the very basic thing. Again, when I share this with Mahabharata researchers or many other researchers, they're saying, yeah, that doesn't apply to what we are doing. Let me tell you, it does apply. It applies everywhere, any technology. Okay, I want to quickly go to the second point, which is what is the open architecture. All our Indian contribution is framed in the type of open architecture. Take Bhagavad Gita, for example. Krishna will say what some other rishis have said, someone else has said, so he will describe that while talking to Arjun, and then he will say, now let me tell you what I think. Those of you who have read Bhagavad Gita, you will see that, okay? And then what happens? Even after he telling what he thinks, what does he tell Arjun? Yate chasi tata kuru. Okay, now it's a different story. Arjun says, Karishe vachanam tava. I'll do what as you say. But he's giving that freedom. Okay, that's the open architecture. Something else, another view looking at the open architecture is this. This is mantra from Rigveda. Om Tvanno asya Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu Ravasprudi Tvanna uti tava chitraya diya shiksha shachishta gatuvit. Om. This appears in 8 mandala of Rigveda. There are 10 mandalas, many of you know that. So it comes into 66 sukta and shlok or whatever, rucha number 14. What I'm trying to say is, if you look at some of the knowledge in the Indic tradition, at a first level you're going to get some knowledge. It has a certain meaning. It's an external meaning. This rucha is a praise to Indra. Okay? Praise to Indra. And so someone may just simply look at this and say, you know what? This is a praise to Indra, just like you go to the temple and you pray, and that's perfectly fine. It actually gives you a lot of benefit. But it's a praise to Indra, and that's where he or she may decide to stop. But there is a lot more into this. These 2 lines actually capture a wonderful model for pedagogy, educational, how the education should be taught. What is the role of the acharya? What is the role of the teacher? What is the role of a student? What is the outcome? What should be the curriculum? What should you focus on? And how should you measure the progress of a student? And also, how should you analyze or rate the teacher? All that is also there into this line. So as you spend more time, you're going to get more insights. Okay? Before I get into this verse, I don't know if you wondered, why, How many of you thought, but hold on, that's fine. But why bother quoting from Rigveda, something so old, and that we quite don't understand what it is saying? True? Right? We don't understand. Why quote from Rigveda? Anyone? Why bother quoting from something so old that we truly don't understand? It appears almost we don't understand. Yeah. Ah, brilliant. You understand the concept of brownie points? Yeah, you get 20. Yeah. Amazing answer. It is true. Actually, that is the bullet. It has passed the test of time. So it has passed all that criticism. In fact, think of it. We don't almost understand it. Almost understand it. We do understand it. But we still, everyone in the room here, I would say, feels like, oh, we should preserve that. Do you agree? Somehow we should preserve that. It's our heritage. It's our tradition. We should preserve it. It has passed the test of time. We say, I don't understand it, but there must be something. It survived. Okay, just before the presentation, I was asking someone. He said, have you read autobiography of Benjamin Franklin? Okay, this was written 200 years ago. I have a copy in my library. I ask my children that they should read it. I ask anyone I run into America, says, please read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. How many of you have heard the name Seneca? Some of you? No? Seneca wrote a book. I mean, he wrote letters. Now that is a book. It says Letters from a Stoic. Okay, now Seneca existed around 2000 years ago. And that book is read to this day. I would encourage you to read that book and see how useful it is to your situations. You will say your troubles are nothing compared to what he went through and the great Sthita Prajna attitude that he had. Okay, and more than, we don't know if he had a chance to read Bhagavad Gita or not. But amazing Sthita Prajna attitude. For that reason, it's worth reading. But my point is, some book survived from 200 years that people feel like reading. At least I felt like reading, like Ben Franklin's autobiography. Some books survived from 2000 years, and I feel like reading. But lot other books were written in between. But many of us don't even know the names of it. Okay, so they have not passed the test of time. Rigveda has passed the test of time. Bhagavad Gita has passed the test of time. Based on my calculation, it's more than 7,500 years old, Bhagavad Gita. It has passed the test of time. You may not have read Rigveda, but I bet you have read at least one or two verses of Bhagavad Gita somewhere. You have heard about it. Okay, it has passed the test of time. What else goes with it? The potency increases with survival. Now, some of you may know this. Some medicine, now alcohol can be a medicine. In Ayurveda, it is a medicine. Brandy, the older it is, more potent it is. Have you heard that? At least my mom used to tell me that, in terms of medicine. It has potency as if goes up. Those of you who are homeopaths, or homeopathy principle, what do? Do more of those dilutions and mixing, and it's supposedly the potency goes up, okay, with that. And then the appreciation for the role of memory. The whole Rigveda is preserved in a perfect fashion by simply Shruti, by teaching from one generation to another. Okay, that is the principle, guys. How many of you during the school days, or said you realized the secret of success was remembering things for the exam, right? But you pretended that it's not that important, or at least you don't do it, because I don't know what the words you use. Mug up, ratta. Have you heard those words? Right? And it's almost like we consider that inferior. Actually, there are scientific studies. Professor M.G. Prasad from Stevens Institute of Technology, he was with us at the education symposium we did just this month, 12th of May. And he showed multiple studies why the memory, like remembering things, is critical for very intellectual thinking, for solving problems. Do you know why? Because unless you have a knowledge, ready knowledge, you cannot even think. If I ask you, it says, please observe the things right now and report to me after one minute. And if I give you 1 minute, what's going to happen? You're going to start asking, what things do you want me to observe? Because I haven't given you enough instructions. If you have a problems that you want to solve, if you don't have a knowledge, you don't know even how to think. Okay? So that's the tradition given to us by Rigveda. And what it does is that a knowledge that stays, okay, is preserved for a long time. It allows us to get newer and deeper insights I'll give you a quick example of a yoga. Just limit ourselves to Bhagavad Gita and maybe Yoga Sutra. What are the different definitions of yoga that you are aware of? Anyone? Let's start with the Yoga Sutra. What is the first one? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Okay, the yoga means to fix your mind, let mind not think of anything. What does Bhagavad Gita says? Bhagavad Gita has at least like 5-10 different definitions of yoga. I'll give you just a couple, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. Okay, being skillful at your work is yoga. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Having a very balanced attitude towards any situation is yoga. Then when you hear Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam, then yoga there is used in a different way. Same yoga word, and there are many, many other meanings of it. They are all interlinked, but they evolved over time. And you know how? With experimentation, and that's science. Okay? And now we hear, how many of you have a Sanskrit background? Sanskrit, you can speak Sanskrit, or you studied Sanskrit for a few years in school. Okay. So I don't know, I could get in trouble with these folks, who raise their hands. Because they, as soon as I go to telling the meaning of this Rigvedic verse, they say, well, Nilesh, hold on, that's not the right meaning. It happens many times, okay? Because the word can have multiple meanings. That's the beauty of Sanskrit. Go to Sanskrit online dictionary and type any word. Water, type water and click, please give me the alternate words. You will run into hundreds of words for water. So people can easily fight. So the concern people have, as soon as we start looking at this meaning, is, but that's not the right meaning. That's the objection you will get. And my point is, that's a valid objection, but you know what? That's not the problem of our times. The disagreements about the meaning of Vedas existed forever. What does that tell you, by the way, guys? What does that tell you about the antiquity of Veda? They are very old. There were fights about the meaning of Vedas in the Mahabharata times, more than 7,500 years ago. There were fights about the meaning of Vedas in the Ramayana times, based on my calculation, more than 14,000 years ago. On and on and on. Okay? But I would like to say proof is in the taste of the pudding. Like, listen to somebody's translation of it, and what does he or she do with it? That's what matters, You can fight on the meaning of it for no reason. And whatever is false, what will happen in the long run? Just like those books, many books that we don't even know the names, they will just fall off. Okay, somebody's meaning, I have claimed a certain date for Mahabharata, I'll briefly mention that, but what happens? If it is wrong, people will say, oh yeah, there was this very crazy person, we no longer talk about him, okay, but he came up with that certain date and so on. That's perfectly fine. You have to be fearless, that, come up with the bold claims, but you have to be humble. Humble because you have to be ready to be wrong. Okay? All right, quickly get back to the meaning of that Rigvedic verse. So 3 circles in education. We have the teacher, we have the student, and we have the outcome. Okay? Now what is the word for teacher? Many words. We use adhyapak, shikshak, acharya. What does acharya mean? Like English translation is teacher, but that doesn't tell you much. How many of you know, in fact, including all the 14 languages used in our constitution, okay, starting with Sanskrit and others, all the languages of India for that matter, there is no word for teach. Now English has it, to learn and to teach, but Sanskrit has no word for teach. Now you're going to jump and say, what about the teacher, adhyapak, and what about the shikshak? If you go to the root of it, you will find out it means assisting in learning. Shiksha means learning, assisting someone in learning. There is no word for teaching. Okay? So acharya, what is the meaning of acharya? The person who practices whatever he teaches. Okay? Now how many teachers we have today who practice what they teach? It's a challenge. I'm also a teacher, right? And I can give a lecture and I say, oh, thank God I don't have to do it. Some of the stuff that we teach, So that verse that I just quoted, Tvanno asya Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu. There are 3 words, Amati, Kshuddha, and Abhishastu. Okay? And I'll tell you what they are. But if you want to teach about those, if you want to give your knowledge about those three to the student, you ought to know about those three. You should be good at those. And what are these? What are those? Amati means ignorance, lack of wisdom. So if you want to impart your wisdom, you have to have a wisdom. Would you agree? The buddhi. Kshuddha is a hunger. You want to teach the vidyarthi how to get rid of, how to take care of his or her kshuddha, hunger. You should know how to take care of your hunger, but find a unique way to make sure that the student is not hungry. Okay? And same thing with Abhishastu. Now literally it means curse. But the curse was the word used anytime someone feeling not well, like we say, okay, maybe you have been cursed. Okay, it means disease, it means addiction, it means vices, epidemic and all those things. And what was the last word? Tvanno asya, and then we say, Uti chitraya, diya, shiksha, shachishta, gatuvit. These are the adjectives for the teacher. Okay, so shiksha is ability to impart knowledge. Now, does that happen to us? Like sometimes we know. What is the difference? We'll come back in the question answer, okay? Yeah. So shiksha is what? Ability to impart. And my point is, sometimes you may know the knowledge, but you will not able to convey to the other person. Does that happen to you? Like you know it, but you try to explain and doesn't happen. What is expected of a teacher is that not only he or she knows, but they have an ability to impart successfully to the other side. And of course, it's a responsibility of a student as well, okay? Gatuvit. You know what that means? Pathfinder, a coach, a mentor. In English we say, don't give somebody a fish, teach him how to fish. Okay? Because everyone's situation is going to be a different. Okay? So Gatuvit. Oops, sorry. What happened here? Okay. And then last one is the Shachishta. From there the word came Sreshta, which means most powerful or most helpful. How do you become most powerful or most helpful? You as a teacher? Well, going through the loops, the feedback loops. Do you hear the science here? We make an experiment, we try to figure out what happened. If it is successful, great. If not, we learn from that mistake and we try again. Okay, that is that loop. Last one. How am I doing on time? I'm going to take these three words. Amati, meaning lack of wisdom or ignorance. Kshuddha, meaning hunger. You okay? I'm okay. And then Abhishastu, meaning let's say disease. And the reason I want to show you with this help of just an illustration of an original contribution is this. Whereas in West, especially now it's changing again, but say I went to Canada in 1991, and if you go back 20 years before that, so sometime in 60s, National Science Foundation in US, lot of money was invested in research in universities. And you know what they were told? Basically, they have to write proposals, and maybe it happens in all countries, including India. And then the proposal is approved, they get the money and they do the research. But no one ever goes back and truly asks them, what is the return on investment? Okay, so a lot of good things came out, but the return on investment may not be always attractive, so it was just not there. Again, the contribution of Indian system when it came to knowledge, but also science, was, it did not involve itself into very esoteric things. In fact, we have a very wrong notion. The Indian philosophy is involved in something very esoteric, something outwardly, So Vaisheshika Sutra, it defines the dharma, okay? It says what? Yato, I think you use some words from, Yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. The ways of prosperity, the best ways of prosperity, the best expertise, development of best expertise for prosperity, sadharma. Indian science has no problem with prosperity. It insists on prosperity. And therefore, until what, 17th, 18th century, if you look at the world data, India was one of the one of the country with the highest GDP, and then something went somewhere wrong, we can blame British, that's okay. But now, British no longer, right? So we have to start thinking, what is it that we let go and how can we capture it? And now I want to give you 3 practical quick examples, and then we'll get into question answers. Some people may think this is all good, great. I mean, I just give you a very high level highlight, but that's fine, wonderful principles. But that's past. Now we have some new stuff, but does it apply to our times? If it doesn't, what do we do with it? We hear about Varnashram, right? Brahman, Vaiksha, Kshatriya, Shudra, okay, they were there. Now that has created lots of problems for us. We should get rid of it, and so on and so forth, okay? Let's look at it, how people are using in the practical sense. One of the 3 things I said, Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu. Amati, that is lack of wisdom, ignorance, addiction, vices, etc. Okay? Anytime you visit Gujarat, especially Ahmedabad, I want you to go and visit this place. It's called Bansi Gir Gaushala. Okay? And in 2017, they won the #1 Gaushala from the government of India. And I had a pleasure of visiting them in January, this January. My original visit was meant to be for 30 minutes, okay? And I even lost the road. I mean, what is that, Uber, Ola fellow lost the road. And at one point I said, no, I'm not going, and turned back. So I called the person who had asked me to visit, and he said, no. No matter how long Uber goes in circles, you are going there. And I'm glad he did that, because I went there for half an hour. I meant to be for half an hour. I spent a whole day, until late night actually, until 12 o'clock. And I won't tell you the details of it, but all I'll tell you is there are a lot of videos of this particular Gaushala on YouTube, okay? Bansi Gir Gaushala. And the person behind it is named Gopal Sutaria here, okay? You know what business he was in before he got into Gaushala? In diamond business. Ladies would love that. Okay, he was in a diamond business in Mumbai, but at one point he said, that's not the way to go. Diamond is not the way to go. He started a Gaushala. Just amazing thing. I don't have a time. This could be 2-hour, 3-hour talk, just that particular Gaushala. But what I want to quote is, Bhagavad Gita talks about it. Krushi go raksha vanijam vaishya karma subhavajam. When I read it many years ago, I couldn't make a connection. I said, because you see what you call, I don't know what you call here, the business, the grocer, so we said, okay, he's doing that, but he's not growing stuff, and definitely he's not having cows. At least the grocers I saw did not have cows per se. They're just doing this. What is the connection between that krushi, cow protection, cow raising, and a business? Okay? He's a good example of it. Again, I don't have a time, but I just want to give a highlight, So something that existed in our ancient wisdom, he's practicing it. Now, is he practicing blindly? Of course not. He is taking the wisdom of modern science, whatever we are learning, not just India, outside India. He's just taking wisdom of everything else, but using the fundamental wisdom of ancient science, Indian science, and making a amazing progress. And so we are working on few things together, in terms of doing design of experiments for medicines based on a cow urine, medicine based on cow milk, and so on and so forth. And just fascinating. In fact, I'll tell you one thing. So every time, his education is 10th grade. And you talk about any subjects on the surface of the earth, and he has stuff to say. And if it is my area, like, he mentioned Lean Six Sigma, if I ask him about design of experiments, like how they find the effect of, they feed cows with a Brahmi. You know what Brahmi is? Gotu cola, like, people eat for memory and whatnot. And I said, what effect he found? And he said, no, we don't detect any effect, meaning in the milk itself. And I said, okay, so what are we going to do? He says, well, we don't find the effect in the milk, but we do find effect among the kids to whom we give that milk versus another control group who doesn't. You see how fascinating this is? Okay? And it has a lot of implications for the whole food industry. Because say in America, they will, and I'm sure it happens possibly in India, hope not, they add a lot of drugs. And you don't see any effect on the milk. You cannot detect it, but actually the effect is there. And the experiments of these kinds can be very useful to show that even when the milk you cannot detect it, but the person who consumes the milk can be affected by it. Are you with me? That is science, okay? So I'm just going to skip through this. That is his farm picture. Something amazing. I mean, he will just go next to the cows. 700 cows he has. All of them have names. Not only him, but the people who work there, they can just call the cow by the name, and the cow comes. Okay, they have small pains for them, but they are free. They are not tied to anything, and they are very, very healthy, you know. And he just said, okay, let's go and greet them. And I was scared, you know. The bull, you know, is like so big, you know. I mean, and actually he will go around and he will chant what do you call, Mahamrutyunjay Jap, and he will chant other things too. And they cry out of love, affection for him, and many others. I mean, he just will show it to me. I mean, we went one by one. Like that evening, I went to 7 different cows. He says, pick one, and he says, Ma Bharati, whatever her name is, Aja. And in 3 minutes, she just comes and stands and let me rub her head, you know, and all that. It's just amazing. When he calls the names, or the people who work there, cow comes from that side, cow's baby comes from the other side. Right in the middle, they stand, they play. The cow is being milked. And just amazing thing. As I said, I can go on. But quickly, the point I want to make, this again is from Rigveda and also from Atharva Veda. Gobishtarema Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu Yavena-kshudha-Purhuta Vishwam. Okay? So, we are talking Amati and Kshuda. Those both words are there. Gobishtarema Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu Yavena-kshudha-Purhuta Vishwam. What is very interesting, and I don't want to go into it, but I gave you some hint here. It says, again, this is a prayer to Indra at a very high level. What am I saying is, there are multiple layers to these meanings, okay, just like the Nyaya Darshan and whatnot. So, quick example is this. I like this Drishtanta. Suppose imagine, river Kaveri, you know, take any auspicious river here, or Ganga, or whatnot. And, you know, some very devout person goes there and takes a bath in the Ganga, you know. This is this great Ganga or great Kaveri, and I'm taking a bath. What is going to happen to that devout person? Obviously, his body will get clean for sure, right? But also, more than likely, his mind will also get clean, because he's going with that devotion. Now, imagine a bull or a buffalo takes shower into that, bath into the river. Definitely, the body will get cleaned, but we don't know about the mind. It's something similar. There is a one initial level meaning, but you can get deeper, as much deeper as you want into this meaning, okay? So, Gobishtarema Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu, what it is saying is, may we eliminate the Amati, the ignorance, with cows. And therefore, I just gave you that example, the practical example of what Gopal Sutriya is doing with the cows, playing with the cows. Yavena-kshudha-Purhuta Vishwam. If we have to just fill our stomach, satiate the hunger, the grains can do the job. The rice will do the job. That's fine. Okay? But for Amati, we need to do something. All right? Now quickly on the Swadharma and then the Varnani Ashram. In Bhagavad Gita, we hear that, right? Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Right? We can talk about that Guna Karma as a passion, one's passion and one's ability. I'm just slightly changing it. Okay? One's passions and one ability. What happens when those come together? It's no longer work. How many, somewhere, sometime in your life you have experienced it. You happen to be in the right job, right in the sense of what you loved. And then it's not a work. Like, I worked for General Electric for 16 years. And out of that, at least majority, 99%, 95% of the time, I was so lucky, not everyone is lucky. I felt like my first job was a sales job, and a regional sales job, and I was traveling, flying everywhere. And I loved traveling. And as you can notice, I loved talking. Right? And, I used to wonder sometimes just driving in a company car, Canadian prairies, and I'm saying, why exactly they pay me? I get to eat on the, company's money. They are giving me a car to drive. What do? I did my research in polymers. I love to talk about polymers. That's what I'm doing with the customers. My point is, if your passion matches with your ability, there is no work. Okay? That is the idea of a Swadharma. That is the idea of a Swakarma. Shreyan Swadharmo, Viguna, Paradharma, Bhayava, all that. So when you do this, these are verses from Bhagavad Gita. I'll quickly go fast through that. But you know what? What have we done with this Varnashram? We have confused that with the caste system. Okay? Or we say one is higher, one is lower. I want to, not that you have necessarily that assumption, but I want to get rid of it. Mahabharata wants to get rid of it. How many of you have heard this story of Kaushiki Brahmin and a Vyadha? Or you might have heard the word Dharma Vyadha. Kaushiki Brahmin actually is been asked by one lady, because we also hear ladies in some different way, the whole feminism movement and whatnot, asked by a lady to go to this Vyada. You know what Vyada is doing? Butcher. Okay, he's cutting meat, cleaning it in the best way possible and serving society. And so Kaushiki Brahmin is surprised. Actually, he goes and says, hey, you know what? I don't know why I've been sent to you, but I'm supposed to get some gyan, jnana from you, some wisdom from you. Tell me. And Vyada says, I'm not sure what wisdom I can give you. So the Kaushiki Brahmin asks, this is from Mahabharata, by the way, Kaushiki Brahmin asks, so please tell me, what do you do? And he tells what he does. He cuts the meats, cleans it, and whatever the skill he knows, that he got it from the tradition, from his tradition, he's serving the society. But that is the wisdom, this, what I just said, that is the wisdom that Kaushiki Brahmin needs. That's why he's sent to him. Or how many of you have heard the story of a Shuka-Janaka Samvad? A discussion between Shuka and Janak, and then Janaka and Sulabha. These are all comes into Mahabharata. Just quickly, who is Shuka Goswami? Goswami, by the way, son of Vyasa. So Vyasa is a Grihastha, right? Shuka Goswami is a brahmachari, always remain a celibate. So he is a disciple of Vyasa. But now Vyasa, after he taught Shuka whatever he wanted to teach, now he says, now to complete your training, go to Janak. Who is who? He is a king, also Grihastha. So see this what is happening? A sannyasi per se is now been sent to a Grihastha. So Varna, but also ashram. And you can see when it comes to knowledge, there are no barriers. Okay, you are a master of your own domain. Every one of us. Okay, we have always something to give. Okay, so Shuka is sent to Janaka, but that same Janaka is sent to Sulabha, a lady, and she is a sannyasini. She is a sannyasini not in 7,500 years ago, more than 7,500 years ago. Because Janaka Sulabha is already an old story in Mahabharata times. So those of you who wonder, so can lady take a sannyas? Well, here it is, and it's all optional. No one is forcing anyone there. And quickly the last one, the Jajali Brahmin, again, now he is sent to a Tuladhar Vaishya. Similar to that Vyada thing. Okay, so he goes there, he says, tell me, I don't know why I've been sent here again, but please enlighten me. And Vaishya, this Tuladhar Vaishya says, I don't know what to enlighten you on. Ask me questions. He said, okay, tell me, what do you do? And again he says, everyone knows the balance, the old, now these days the things might have changed, electronic balance, but the old one, right, Tula side. He says, doesn't matter what it is, whether I'm weighing the potatoes or cabbage. I use the same principle. Okay, just remain. And that's the wisdom. So in your own work, you can find the wisdom. Okay, in fact, that's the only place you can find the wisdom. Quickly, kshuddha, that is the hunger. That's either you grow your own food, assuming kshuddha is just a hunger of the stomach, and we'll stick with that, or you purchase. How do you purchase? If you want to purchase, you need a prosperity. You need money, right? You need gold. How do you get that? Do you know why India had, or possibly still has, lots of gold? Because India was an exporting country. Okay? But, we cannot take their paper bills in the old times. They mean nothing. They didn't have paper bills. But we could take their gold in exchange. That's how India has a lot of gold, prosperity. Okay? Now, what is the connection of astronomy to this prosperity? The motivation and the byproduct. Astronomy became very important in India. Okay, I'll tell you the best astronomy ever. Even to this day, there are many things in Indian astronomy that is not been understood even to this day. Okay, lot of research. I mean, hundreds of people can work for 100 years and still it will not be done. But what was the motivation? First motivation was agriculture. A perfect calendar is needed for the rain and weather. And then commerce and navigation, again, you need to know the stars, latitudes, longitudes, and the North Pole star, location and measurement and so on. But I'm going to quickly talk about the byproduct that Jai Pradeep referred to, So it's not even the main thing. The second byproduct, that can be so powerful. I want to give you a quick summary. That's what I worked on. And what is that byproduct? The enormous evidence, if it exists, can be used to establish the chronology of Indian civilization. He said, just a small error there, he said 1700. He missed 1 0. Okay? And he also missed the plus, because my claim is the continuous civilization evidence of Indian civilization exists for more than 17,000 plus years. I'm not stopping at 17,000, 17,000 plus, okay? Again, what is the other benefit of this kind of evidence? It's a strong defense against the dogmatic nonsense. I don't mince words, okay? A dogmatic nonsense of Aryan invasion theory. I'm sure you hear a lot of it here, but around the world also, okay? Extreme claims of modernity and antiquity. What I mean by that? We cannot be extreme. Samatvam yoga uchyate, right? So something is said like, oh, it was written only 500 years ago or 500 AD or so. And another thing that we hear is what? Yuga, millions of years, billions of years, and so on, okay? They both could be true, but in the absence of evidence, they are all useless claims. They are vitanda, if there is no evidence, okay? Lunisolar calendar, the Indian calendar, and again, we have multiple calendars, but they are all lunisolar. And that is the best thing that has happened, not to India, the best thing that has happened to humanity. Okay, now that could be a topic by itself, that could be a course, and so on. Okay, and all that you hear of geometry, mathematics, Kerala School of Mathematics. What is Kerala School of Mathematics? It's an Indian school of mathematics. It got preserved in Kerala, we call it Kerala School of Mathematics. Integers, science of large numbers. Jainism, you see 10 to the power plus 53 and so on, these big numbers. That was all due to astronomy. Quickly, I want to highlight my original work on the astronomy, just at a very high level. Remember, I told you Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. Now you see that Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. That is the triangle there, and at the bottom is the background knowledge of astronomy. So what I did, I looked at. Oh, I don't know why it goes past sometime. Okay. What I did is I looked at all the astronomy references from Mahabharata, more than 200. I objectively tested each one of them to arrive at 5561 BCE as the year of Mahabharata war. So everyone understands how to read BCE. So if you want to know how many years ago, that 5561 plus 2018, okay, that will give you whatever the number is. More than 7,500 years ago. And this is my claim. What does that mean? I could be wrong. Okay? I want to be fearless in saying that's correct, but I could be wrong. And I want people to look at my work and tell me where I am wrong. Because if they do, that means we as a civilization have made progress in finding out more, growing our knowledge about Mahabharata or Ramayana. In case of Ramayana, I looked at every single astronomy observation. There are more than 500, 575 or so. In fact, the number 200 I'm saying for Mahabharata is 2011 number. Now that every time I read Mahabharata, I come across something more and I said, how did I miss this? Fortunately, everything that I find, it also supports 5561 BCE. But I missed a lot, first time. So based on that, I came up with 12,209 BCE as the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. These are my two books, and I may have those, but so you can have a look at it, but please don't walk away with it. I'm going to give it to Jai Pradeep ji. Okay, so Ashwini, that's my wife there. If you can just hold, those are the two books, the same books that you see here. Okay, they're on Amazon. Now this is not a commercial of my books, by the way. Okay, if anyone needs it, willing to read in a PDF, like online, just send me an email and I'll send you the PDF copy. Okay. So this is not a commercial venture, by the way, So, but if you want with my signature, then that's $1,000. Just kidding, okay? All right. And I'm ready to write ready to publish my third book. This is on Bhishma Nirvan, okay? Again, see, so Arundhati Vasishta that Jai Pradeep ji explained so beautifully, and thank you, okay? No other Mahabharata researcher even understands it. Forget about explaining it. But is it that difficult? It's not difficult. That's the beauty of that observation. It's so simple, okay, so simple. I mean, when I did this, my daughter was like, 6-year-old. She could understand it. Actually, first grade or something. I made her go to school and present in the school. And the other kids understood, the first grade, 7-year-old kids understood. It is that simple, it's that beautiful, okay? So that is Arundhati Vasishta, but something else gives the exactly same answer, okay? Like going to the temple of the Meenakshi here, you know, one route from here, another route, no matter which one they say, but it ends up there, 5561 BC. That's what this book does, okay? Sorry, I need to go fast here. Okay. What I want to show you quickly is I talked about the 11 different elements of scientific acumen. I don't have a time to show you all, but just to quickly give you, it's not complex. It's a common sense. It is common sense. So what happens, how big is Mahabharata? 18 kandas, more than 125,000 verses. You actually start reading and say anytime you hear something astronomy, you stop, you copy paste and note it down. Okay, that's how what you do is, this is called prathakkaran or separation. Out of that whole thing, you separate out the astronomy evidence, more than 215 plus. Now, how does the astronomy evidence looks like? It looks like this, the one at the top there. Okay, it's not easy to read for the folks in the back. You know, that top, whatever you see, the picture in the top, has got that Arundhati observation there. Actually, that portion has got 4 observations. Okay, Ya Chaisha, Vishtuta, Rajas, Trailoke, Sadhu Sammata, Arundhati, Taya Pesha, Vasishta, Prashtata, Kruta, or what is it? Alaksha Prabhaya Hina, Purnamasi Cha Kartikim, Chandrodbhut, Agni Varnascha, I can't even read it. So, something Navastale. These are all astronomy observations. So you see anytime planet, star, sun, moon, nakshatra, you say, okay, let me copy it, write down the reference. Okay, very simple process, the initial one. And then you see again here, Dhruvam Prajulitam Goram Apasavya Pravartate Chitra Swatintare Chaiva Dishtita Parushagra. You hear astronomy? Chitra, Swati, nakshatras, right? Vakranu Vakram Krutvam Cha Shravane Pavaka Prabha, Shravan. Brahma Rashi, Brahmyam Nakshatram, you know, Lohitango Vyavastita, everyone knows Lohitanga, Mars, okay? So anytime you find, you just note it down, okay? And I'll just skip this. So now once you have this astronomy evidence, how do you classify? Well, it depends on what you want to do with it. You start with potatoes, what are you going to do with it? Depends on what you want to make out of it. Fries, different process, right? Something else, different process, right? Aloo bonda, different process, yeah? So in this case, if you are looking for chronology, you may want to classify them, and this is how I classified. Okay, certain references tell you, go back to vernier caliper. Certain references tell you the approximate time period. Are you with me? So the one in the blue, they help you define approximate time period. The other yellow, they help you fine tune that last reading. Okay. So I'll skip this. So this is the sequence in which you should test them. But this is a good example. So when I tested Arundhati Vasishta observation, it told me that the Mahabharata war, based on it, could never happen anytime, could have never happened anytime after 4508 BCE. See how accurate it is? You can argue with that date, by the way, using astronomy thing. It's not even a year later than 4508 BC. Or it couldn't have happened anytime before 11,091 BC. Do you know why? Because the reference that Jay Pradeepji referred to, Vyasa says in Mahabharata, at the time of war, Arundhati was walking ahead of Vasishta. The star Arundhati was walking ahead of Vasishta. If you go any time outside these years, Vasishta will walk ahead of Arundhati. Okay? But somebody is going to say, well, but that's just one observation. What about other observations? Okay, and that's a very genuine question. So now you look at Bhishma Nirvana observations, you look at some Tithi constraints, and then it gives you another boundaries. Everyone follows what I'm doing? Overlapping areas, okay? So the second one said, whatever it is, the Mahabharata war cannot happen anytime before 8000 BC, anytime after 3700 BC. Then I go for another set of reference, and it tells me that, sorry, just back. It tells me it cannot happen anytime before 7200, anytime after 5000. And then I go more, and bingo, 5561 BC, precise and accurate. Okay, just a visual picture of it. Okay, The same thing, if people don't like circles, then I can do rectangles, all kind of fun. Same thing. Okay, quickly, I'm just plotting this on the time axis. Just please notice, I know many people confuse. Actually, I end up confusing them. We start on the left side with our time right now and going backwards in antiquity, okay? So what I have plotted there is the so-called Aryan invasion timing, 2000 BC to 1500, okay? Just recently, my wife and we, how many of you are aware of this article being discussed in social media coming from Harvard, Vagish Narasimhan, 92 authors on Aryan invasion theory. It is in a preprint and wants to claim again, the best on genetics, it happened, that nonsense. Okay, so I said, you know what, let's put stop to that nonsense. So we drove to Boston. We had a meeting with him. It was a lot of fun meeting. I wish I could have recorded it, but he wouldn't have said what he said otherwise. No, a lot of nonsense is going on. But what happens if you hear the word Harvard? Now I know it's being recorded, right? And that's a great thing, what I'm saying here, So if you hear the word Harvard, Cambridge, what happens? We just say, must be good stuff, right? You just use this scientific acumen, of course, from Indian literature, but any literature. Okay, you can expose it. Any one of us can expose the nonsense of it, the logic or lack of logic, in less than 5 minutes. My wife is not a scientist in a sense of not a hard science like physics or something like that. She's a chartered accountant. You know what we call them in business? Bean counters. Yeah, she could get, she could smash the arguments of this person who is PhD in genetics in 5 minutes. In fact, I said, no, please stop now because I really wanted him to talk. Okay, so it's really happening. So this Aryan invasion nonsense business. Now, what is it saying? The Sanskrit or precursor to Sanskrit came after 2000 BC. What I am showing, or what we can show with the astronomy evidence, is that Mahabharata, which is all Sanskrit, not because it's written in Sanskrit, all the names of characters, Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra, Bhim, Yudhishthir, Dharmaraj, what are these? The places, Hastinapur, these are all Sanskrit-based names, okay? So that existed in 6th millennium BCE. Sometime, it gets stuck. And then if you go to Ramayana, same thing, 14 millennium BC, 13 millennium BC, and so on. Now quickly, I'll go fast through this. I've gone over time here. If you look at Saraswati evidence from Ramayana, Mahabharata, from Rigveda, you see the consistent story. And that's how my story for 17,000 plus years, okay? I'll just skip through that, but what I'll ask you to do, those of you who are interested, I have given similar presentation in more detail because the focus was just on that. That's 17,000 plus years of, so if you just go to YouTube and type Nilesh Oak, you are going to at least run into 30 plus YouTube presentations, and if you look at some of them, I know, my apologies, they are sometimes very long, like hour and 30 minutes and so on. You don't have to watch at the same time. And the reason they are long is when we get this chance, like we meaning all of us, we just try to put it together, because we have our everyday jobs, we don't get, so we have to do this. So whenever we get a chance, we are there for you to watch. Please spend some time on those. Some of the wonderful evidence combined together, more than 11, 12 different disciplines of science. You just name it and it's there. Archaeology, oceanography, climatology, genetics, paleontology, craniometrics, I must be forgetting lots of it, geology, geophysics, morphodynamics, and so on. Okay, so that's a quick summary. Mahabharata in 6th millennium BC, Ramayana in 13th millennium BC, and as far as the Rigveda goes, 6th millennium BC, and way back in antiquity. We don't know exactly how far back. We just don't know. We don't have evidence. Quickly, last Abhishastu, and I'll stop. How many of you had a smallpox shots when you grew up? Some of you may not have it because it got eradicated and no longer they give those shots, right? Number of you had those shots. Who invented inoculation or whatever you want to call it, vaccination? Louis Pasteur? Yeah, close, and you get brownie points too, But, huh? Not Benjamin, good try. Okay, Benjamin Franklin, no? Anyone knows the name? Yes, okay, at least that's what Wikipedia says. Okay, Edward Jenner, and a big story about, he is giving to his own child. That's not true. Even Wikipedia knows that. Okay, he gave it to his servant's child. Now that's another fun story. But, Edward Jenner, he was born in 1749, and 1796, he experimented with cowpox, okay, vaccination. And then, this is a sad story for India, by the way, it happened then. In 1800, now 1857, now British had the full control over India after that. In 1800, the Indian method, the certain parts of India, Bengal, of inoculation was banned in India. It was considered primitive. Why? Because of so-called sophisticated method by Edward Jenner, 1796. But this is the fun story, okay? And I want you to go to Wikipedia and read some of the stuff, okay? Take anything written on Wikipedia with a grain of salt. In fact, you can have a bag of salt, okay? So, Wikipedia entry on Edward Jenner, little truth mixed with lots of propaganda, belittling of Indian claim for originality. I'll just give you one illustration of it. One line, it is written there, it says, it may also have occurred in India, it may. And I'm going to show you why that is not correct. I mean, why even someone shouldn't say that. But this is disputed. So it may have happened, but even that is challenged. This is disputed. Other investigators contend that the ancient Sanskrit medical text of India do not describe these techniques. Now, that last sentence is true in the sense that we haven't found anything in ancient Sanskrit text that specifically talks of smallpox. It talks of many epidemics, but not, it doesn't say smallpox or whatever the equivalent. That is true. But you know what is the problem with that? No one ever made that claim. So they will write something in such a way that we never made a claim. So for example, my height is 5 feet 6 inches and shrinking. And somebody writes, but it doesn't appear that Nilesh Oak was ever a 6 feet 4 inches. But no one claimed that. It's something like this. Now against this, go ahead and please read that. Against it, I'm sure some of you know this, Dharampal, have you heard that name? He wrote 5 different volumes, and if you look at this Indian Science and Technology volume, I'm just going to give you a highlight. This first paper that he quotes, this is written by a British doctor, okay? And when is it written? About the inoculation method of Banaras Brahmins in the province of Bengal. Look at the date. This evidence exists. Royal Society, their booklets. 1731, what does that tell you? Edward Jenner was not even born. Okay? Or there is a second paper, much more detailed paper, written in 1767. Edward Jenner didn't finish his medical degree until 1792. Did not work with cow inoculation until 1796. This is written in 1767. And do you know what was the success rate? Again, please go and read in the detail. The success rate of this method of inoculation by Banaras Brahmins in the province of Bengal was, the defect rate was 6 sigma, 1 in a million. Better than 6 sigma. Okay? And look at the dates. Quick summary, and I know I went over time, my apologies. Scientific acumen is India's gift to the world, and I'm sure many other cultures also contributed to this, but it's not acknowledged. Not just India, but other cultures are also not acknowledged. But sometimes they are acknowledged more than India, like China, for example. It's acknowledged, even when the details don't exist. Emphasis, India's scientific mind or scientific treatises, the emphasis is on objective testing as opposed to dogma. Inventions for larger good and not for personal profit. Okay? Gift of celestial clock. I had to run quickly through it because of time. But a celestial clock for documenting chronology markers of civilization. Now that's true for the past. But we may also think, if we want to leave the legacy, maybe we should find what's going ahead and what's going behind. And maybe that's the language we should write down. Something happened today. And then the pedagogy that I quickly went over, what was the focus? not some esoteric focus, multiple degrees, just like pharmaceutical industry invents new diseases. These days, education area invents new degrees. We can't also, somebody says, I'm doing MA or BA in something, and we say, okay, so what does that mean? Right? So we are inventing things. So, but pedagogy focus on health, wealth, and wisdom. Amati-kshudha-Abhishastu. All right. Thank you so much. Questions, objections? And okay, I'm not sure. So what is? Can you? Okay. You care about the final outcome. Why worry about the process? Okay. Yeah. So well, if you have enough, no, that's a great point. I mean, you raised. If you have enough money, okay, to buy, you can possibly do that. Wikipedia is one such thing. Try changing something with the truth and see what happens on Wikipedia. Not for some basic things, but try adding this information that I gave you just now from Dharampal's book to Edward Jenner's section or smallpox inoculation and see what happens. It will be removed. On the Kurukshetra war, again, I don't know who added it on Wikipedia. Somebody added entry to my research. Okay, so somebody sent me, hey, your name is there, blah, 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 So I said, okay, well, we'll check. And it may be 15 days. After that, I went to Wikipedia, whatever the link he had sent, to see what was written about me. It was not there. And actually, that made me feel very good, by the way. Can you tell me why? Somebody put efforts, there is a certain ways how you do it. Somebody removed it. And why that should make me feel good? Because someone is feeling threatened. As much as the information is not there. But just try this. So I don't know if I answered your question, but if you do this, it will be removed. So if you have a power to stick with the truth or control the truth, that's the one story. But what if you are trying to find out what is the truth? If you don't follow the method, you are going to be misled. Vikalpa. It will lead you to wrong conclusions. And you will not even know about it. Anyone else? Yes. So everyone understood his question. So for example, what happens is if you try to get into a deeper meaning of Rigveda, for example, somebody is going to come in and said, no, you got the meaning wrong. Okay? Or that's not how you should interpret. Or that's not even the purpose of this richa. And things like that. And what he's saying is, that's separating us from, what you call the exact text, or the people who know the text and those people who know the science. And that is the reality. That is the reality, and we have to fix that problem, which is what happened. Those people who, I'm using a generic word, the thing is with the public lectures is you're always going to offend someone, even if you don't intend it. But I'm going to use the word Sanskritist. And right now we have one of the great Sanskritists, I don't know if you have heard the name, Dr. Gauri Mahulikar. She retired as a, the head of Sanskrit University of Mumbai University, and she is with us there in Adi Shankara Nilayam. She's going to with us through the whole workshop and whatnot. And so we had a lot of this discussion. In fact, the verse I quoted, Gobishtarema Amati Dureva Yavenakshudha-Purva Vishwam, I got one meaning from her yesterday. Now, how many of you have heard the name Vinoba Bhave? Vinoba, right? He has given a slightly different meaning, not totally different meaning. His meaning was, I like that meaning even more. Gobishta Rema Amati Dureva, Yavenakshudha-Purva Vishwam. He has said, to get rid of our Amati, we definitely need Gobishta. And Gobishta he interpreted in a sense of the essence of a cow, in a sense of a milk, a cow urine, whatever it could be. Otherwise, as far as filling the stomach, the grains will do the job. But that ghee, the clarified butter we need to keep our brain straight. Something like this. So that's another layer of meaning that person has found. Now there is no reason to fight on it. How do we solve this problem? Take randomly 50 people here, randomly 50 people here, give cow's ghee to this group for a certain time period, may test them on a certain things and see what happens. That is the method of science. But back to the question, or rather a comment that you raised, yes, that is a big challenge. And that is a big challenge, obviously, with people who purely know Sanskrit or, controller, not controller, those who understand the translation. And some of us cannot translate. I take help from others. But then other group who understands only science and someone who understands only scriptures or only literature. What do we do with it? Actually, it is happening. I mean, you look at some of the researchers right now, Indic Academy is a good one, but some of the folks, but my humble self, my background is chemical engineering, bachelor's, master's, sold plastics, sold aircraft engines, and sold power plants and whatnot. But while I was doing that, I was chasing Arundhati Vasishta. 15 years, guys, 15 years. I mean, people, used to say, when I published my book, and I've said it, my friend called me, my good friend, and, he was worried, identifying with me as his friend. Right? People worry. He said, is it okay to tell my other folks that you are my friend after you've written this book? Because so that he doesn't come out crazy. People worry. But what is happening is people from from a pure science background are now looking into the ancient narratives. And the hope is that people who are experts in ancient narratives realize that just knowing the words, just knowing the translation, the details of Sanskrit is not enough. Just not enough. It has to be tested. It has to be objectively tested. But it is happening. The good news is it is happening. Anyone?
From what starts on Amavasya, if there is a particular nakshatra on that day, does it match with that nakshatra, your date?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. So his question is, and you correct me, tell me if I'm wrong. So I have claimed 5561 BC as the year of Mahabharata war. And he also said the first day of the war was Amavasya. And does the nakshatra of that day matches with my date? Okay. Like if I say yes, then he's going to tell the which nakshatra it is and all that. Actually, yes, it does match. The nakshatra that people refer to is a Jeshta. I'm sure if he's asking the question, he has done his homework,
Yeah. Manish Pandit comes with a date at 3058 BC.
Who?
Manish Pandit.
Yeah, no, he doesn't come with that. Actually, Manish Pandit doesn't come with anything. So the date that Manish Pandit refers to, like what you can cheer up for, now with IPL, the cheerleading, and all that stuff. What he cheers up for is a 3067 BC.
Yeah.
Its origin comes to Tamil Nadu, by the way. Professor Srinivas Raghavan in 1969. The book is there on the public domain. You can read it. So he proposed 3067. Now, remember this. For his time, he did a good job. Not the perfect job, but did a good job. Lokmanya Tilak in 100 years ago wrote two books, Orion and Arctic Home in the Vedas. Now, the ultimate conclusions of Lokmanya Tilak have been now falsified. For Orion and also for Arctic Home in the Vedas. But you know what? As those people who come to me and they like my work and they say, hey, can I do something? I want to do something. Or what should I read? I said, go read Lokmanya Tilak's Orion and Arctic Home in the Vedas. They said, is that true? I said, that's the point. It's not true, but it's some of the brilliant works that you can look at. In fact, I was fascinated by those works so much that I went to Inside Arctic Circle twice, just with that thing in my head, to see whatever the descriptions he has referred to in the Arctic Home in the Vedas, can I see them? It is that fascinating. So even when actually it's science, there are many theories which are now we know they are wrong, but they are fascinating. You should almost read them. So the challenge with the Manish Pandit, and Manish Pandit is part of our Indic Academy and all. The challenge with this is that he doesn't understand a thing. I mean, I'm saying it and I'm glad it has been recorded. So how do we solve this problem, guys? I mean, so we can fight, right? Something like this. I ask people that, let's do a open debate. This is not about fighting. This is about going after the truth. Sir Karl Popper said, maybe you are right, maybe I'm wrong, but let's talk and figure out what is the truth. Are you with me? Okay. So it can be done. Now, there is one good example of that. You might have seen it. How many of you have seen my 1 hour debate with Konrad Elst? Okay, so please go ahead. It's on what is that? Vimeo or Vimeo? Vimeo. Just go and type Nilesh or Konrad Elst. It's a 1 hour debate. At the end of it, we did not agree. We don't have to agree. It is for the people who are listening to it, for them to kind of get some insights and reach their conclusion. But it was what do you think? It was a very healthy debate.
Okay, we are having a good time and we are good friends. We end up running into each other multiple times. There is no acrimonious, relationship, animosity. We joke at each other. I mean, that's how the research should go. It should be a vad, it should be a samvad. There is no need for vitandavad or just getting angry, and sometimes it may happen. Now he's quoting Professor Achar. That's another problem. If you go to pragyata.com, I don't know if you have read it. Professor Achar wrote something, I responded to it, then he wrote back again and I responded to it. Those 4 articles, 4 pieces of back and forth is there for anyone to look at it. That's how we have to do it. So, not to bring the quarrel to the front, but it's worth bringing. So when I send something to Manish Pandit, he blocked me on the Facebook, then he blocked me on the Twitter, but he still writes about my research. Now, how nice. So I said, just bring it up. I mean, we can have open debate and do it any place. Some of the other Indic Academy members, like Ashish Dar, I mean, he is invited. He said, let's do it. We have another friend, again Indic Academy, and guys, this is good, In fact, what I would like to see, and I'm glad in some sense it is happening. It is great, it's wonderful, even when we are not following the norms of the true samvad and bit fighting in a bit acrimonious fashion. I would rather have Manish Pandit and me fight than Sheldon Pollock and me. It's better that 20 Indians get together and fight about the date of Mahabharata or whatever it is. Isn't that better? Yeah? But what is happening? 3 professors, one from Harvard, another from Columbia, and third from California, Berkeley, get together in a nice resort in Colorado and talk about, in an accent that we don't understand when they say something in Sanskrit, about our narratives. It's better that Manish Pandit and I fight. We have other friend Jijit Nadumari Ravi, and Jijit Nadumari Ravi, I said the same thing, let's do it. So I think through that we will make progress, just like with Kondrade. I mean, there was a lot of progress. By the way, just as a coincidence, I'll tell you, the reason I was invited to this Adi Shankara Nilayam for teaching the Mahabharata course is because one of the individual who works there happened to see my debate with Kondrade and said, let's invite this guy. Not because that person necessarily understands everything that I have said or the technicalities of it, but something somewhere clicked and said, that makes sense, let's get this guy. Alright, if not, I'll pass on the baton to whoever. One more question, do we have time for it?
This is not a question, this is something,
Comment?
Wikipedia, do you have a Wikipedia that I can go and look at? Because it piqued my interest today. What can I do? Where can I see? Okay, I think you piqued my interest after your talk today. So I was just wondering, like the Wikipedia, do you have some kind of Indipedia that I can go and look at to get all of this information?
Do you have a platform, are you saying?
Yeah, do you have something like that?
You are asking a question.
Or if not, are you going to start something like that?
No, I don't have to start. Actually, another person, there are few efforts by the way. But the recent one is Srijan Foundation, Rahul Diwan. And I don't know, it may not be in the public news yet, public news in the sense, you have to work this in the background. And guys, and all of you, and thank you for coming, and I hope that through all the fast presentation that I had to go through, hopefully I gave you like a movie trailer, there's some exciting part. But there's just simple thing takes a lot of effort. Okay, simple thing, what you're asking, actually there are efforts going on. He put together 5-6 people. He said, guys, can you start writing? I'm one of them. Okay, but this discussion happened 6 months ago, and I haven't had a chance to write even a single line because I'm talking in Madurai. You know what I'm saying is something else is going on. So there are efforts, but what we need is there are 2 aspects. Raju Malhotra ji talks about it. One is the generation of everyone has heard Raju Malhotra. Okay, if not, go type Google, get his book, start reading. What he talks about is there are some folks who will create knowledge, do the original work, okay, the original creation. But then we need 1,000 others to distribute that knowledge. Sometimes, there are, all of us are not, I'm not a good writer in the sense of very elegant writer. I just get the quickly information there in the book. But there are many others who can write very well in a simple language that many can understand, and we need to pitch in. I mean, if you want to do something, I'll assure you there is no one outside that door who is so excited to do it. If there is anyone, that's in this room. Okay? So yes, there are efforts, but my point is, I mean, if you have some idea, take it even in a small way and just start working on it, and then the folks will come. And you have to give a time. So I wrote a book in 2011. People ask me to write, get somebody to write a foreword, for this. And it's not out of arrogance or something, but actually ask many people, hey, can you read and write a foreword? And they will not just simply respond. I mean, it didn't bother me. I said, okay. I mean, I was writing for the first time. I said, that's good. I now have decided none of my book will ever have a foreword. People ask me, when are you publishing in a peer-reviewed journals? Okay, that will be my another talk next time if I come to the nonsense of peer-reviewed journal. But the point I will make is, now I jokingly, but I really mean it. I say that to publish something in a peer-reviewed journal, you need to have peers, right? Right? There can be competitors when it comes to Mahabharata research, but I say for 5561 BC, there is no competition. All right. Should we stop? Thank you.
Thank you, Nilesh. Nilesh has brilliantly explained today's topic of scientific acumen and contribution of Indian civilization, drawing parallels from our age-old scriptures like the Veda, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Yoga Sutras. He has illustrated the way our scriptures are open to interpretation by everyone by giving apt examples and allegories. I think we are indeed fortunate to have you with us, sir, and you have kindled our interest for contribution of Indian civilization amongst all of us. Thank you. I now request Mr. Narayan to present a memento to Nilesh as a token of our appreciation. I now request Mr. Narayan Tyagarajan, founder member of Tamil Nadu Youth Thinkers Forum, to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to give the vote of thanks. I thank everyone who come here and attended the talk given by Mr. Nilesh. I thank Mr. Nilesh for giving us an insight how ancient acumen was, scientific acumen was. I thank Mr. Jay Pradeep for organizing this event, and I also thank Mr. Harikiran Vadlamani for helping us establish Indic Academy Madurai chapter. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. A small request to everyone, please make sure you fill the feedback forms and drop it in the box before you leave. Let us all raise for the national anthem.